are you guys?
Good, how are you?
Good.
So I would just love to ask, why mermaids? How did this all get started?
Why mermaids?
Why mermaids?
Like I had said on the panel, it started with my love of Jaws.
Okay.
And at that time, when I first came up with the idea, the Pirates of the Caribbean movie on Stranger Tides had just come out. We sort of saw a different, more aggressive depiction of mermaids, and it just felt like it was one of those mythologies that is global, that it sort of got pushed into a very specific kind of box, the way that they were depicted. And it just felt really exciting to do a completely new take on this classic mythology. And then, Emily and I just started to build out the characters in the town and really make it come alive. But that was sort of the genesis of the idea.
I loved what Eric had done with it because it felt like this, of course, giant mythology, and yet it was so grounded and real, which is always what I love. So marrying those two things, I felt was just such a brilliant idea of his.
And then getting into the actual design of our mermaids, it was really fun to sort of come up with unique takes. Like, for example, the classic mermaid is upper half human, lower half fish, but ours is a much more unified creature. So it's thinking okay, if these things really were out there, and they could be, what would they look like? And we sort of gave them certain design elements. There's a really aggressive tail spike they have that they can use as a weapon. And so it's really fun just to sort of let our imaginations run wild with what these creatures could look like.
And having watched the pilot and seen that they are a little bit darker than the usual mermaids that we're used to, how do y'all shape that to fit the Freeform audience?
Interesting, because I think Freeform, with their own change of kind of audience, they've been seeking a new audience as well, and so they were very much on board with going toward the dark side and grounding things and making it about story and mythology and darkness, and not just doing a Disney version. In their rebranding, it really helped our concept as well.
It was so funny. I remember every time, even when we met, and everyone who had heard, Freeform's doing a mermaid show, everyone thinks H2O. And then everyone said, and then we read the script and we're like, oh, wow, this is actually a lot more interesting than we were expecting. And like Emily said, it sold sort of the final month that it was ABC Family transitioning into Freeform. And so it's been really fun to be part of that transition and rebranding, and they've really pushed the darkness. They want it to go dark and complex, and they've really pushed and embraced that in a great way.
They've been amazing in that way, yeah.
Speaking of dark and complex, you started off with a mermaid. Is there any other land or sea character that you would like to introduce and come up with on the show?
There will be more mermaids that come on to land. But the one thing that I think is really important with shows like this is that the mythology doesn't get too massive. I think a lot of times shows can get lost in their mythology, and all of a sudden, okay, we're running out of ideas. Let's turn them into mermaid zombies. So we just want to keep our mythology very real and simple and grounded, and really go deep with it.
Someone recently asked us, so is there a mermaid world down there, like a city? Is there a mermaid city? And I think we want to stay away a little bit from ideas that maybe people have done before, that you might think of as the usual, and the idea being that just like on land, everything's very complicated underwater as well. There may be other cultures that they don't necessarily know about, and that they inhabit the entire world. And as we were saying earlier, 95% of the ocean is underwater. So I don't think we'll be coming up immediately with other cultures that look, other kinds of creatures that we'll see, but there may be variations of things.
And within the mermaids themselves, there's a lot of variation.
Exactly.
I mean, Rin is sort of the one who's very fearless and goes onto land and is more open to human interaction, whereas others are much more afraid of humans, have a much more aggressive stance towards them. So there's a lot of variation within the mermaid
just
world
like
we have.
humans.
Yeah, right.
And kind of as a follow-up, we've got the mermaids. What about mermen?
Well, stay tuned.